The Road to Forever. The autumn leaves danced through the crisp mountain air as Jake Thompson walked along the winding country road. His worn boots crunched softly on the gravel shoulder, and his calloused hands carried a simple toolbox. He had been fixing Mrs. Henderson's fence gate all morning, and now the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the valley below. Jake lived a quiet life in the small farming community of Cedar Ridge. His grandfather's old farmhouse sat on 20 acres of rolling hills where he grew vegetables and raised a few chickens. The land wasn't much, but it was home. Every morning he would wake before dawn to tend to his crops, and every evening he would sit on his front porch, watching the sun disappear behind the mountains. Money was always tight. The small farm barely provided enough to cover the bills, and Jake often took odd jobs around town to make ends meet. But he never complained. There was something peaceful about his simple existence, something that made him feel connected to the earth and to his family's legacy. As Jake rounded the bend in the road, he heard the distant rumble of an engine. The yah sound grew louder, echoing off the rocky cliffs that bordered the mountain highway. He glanced up to see a sleek black SUV speeding down the steep grade, moving much too fast for the narrow, winding road. The vehicle swayed dangerously as it took the curves. Jake could see that something was wrong. The SUV wasn't slowing down at the sharp turn ahead. Instead, it seemed to be accelerating, as if the driver had lost control completely. Without thinking, Jake dropped his toolbox and sprinted toward the road. His heart pounded as he watched the massive vehicle career toward the guardrail. Beyond that thin metal barrier lay a 100-foot drop into the rocky canyon below. "No, no, no," Jake whispered under his breath, his legs pumping as fast as they could carry him. The SUV struck the guardrail with a tremendous crash. Metal twisted and sparked, but the barrier held just long enough for Jake to reach the scene. He could see a woman inside, her blonde hair whipping around as she fought with the steering wheel. Her face was pale with terror. The guardrail groaned. Under the weight of the vehicle, it wouldn't hold much longer. Jake grabbed the door handle and pulled with all his strength. The impact had jammed it shut, but his years of farm work had given him powerful hands. After several attempts, the door finally gave way with a sharp crack. "Come on!" he shouted over the sound of creaking metal. "We have to get you out of there!" Woman looked up at him with wide, frightened eyes. She was beautiful, dressed in expensive clothes that seemed out of place in this rural setting. But right now, none of that mattered. She was in danger, and Jake knew he had only seconds to act. He reached in and carefully unbuckled her seatbelt, then wrapped his strong arms around her waist. "Hold on to me," he said gently but firmly. "I've got you." She clung to him as he lifted her from the driver's seat. Just as they cleared the vehicle, the guardrail finally gave way completely. The SUV tumbled over the edge, crashing down the mountainside in a series of thunderous impacts before coming to rest far below. Jake carried the woman to safety, setting her down gently on the grassy shoulder of the road. They both stood there, for a moment, breathing hard, staring at the gap in the guardrail where her vehicle had disappeared. "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice shaking. I would have." "But you didn't," Jake said softly. "You're safe now." She turned. To look at him then, really look at him. Her eyes were the color of summer sky, and they held a mixture of gratitude and something else he couldn't quite identify. "My brakes failed," she explained, still trembling slightly. "I was coming down the mountain, and suddenly I couldn't stop. The pedal just went to the floor." Jake nodded. "These mountain roads can be dangerous, especially if you're not used to them. Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "No, I think I'm okay. Thanks to you." She paused, studying his face. "I'm Victoria Ashford. Jake Thompson," he replied simply. Victoria looked around at the remote mountain setting, then back at Jake. "How did you know to be here? How did you know I needed help?" Jake smiled slightly. I didn't know. I was just walking home from a job. Sometimes things just happen the way they're supposed to, I guess. Over the next hour, as they waited for the police and tow truck to arrive, Victoria and Jake talked. She told him about her life in the city, about the business empire she had inherited from her father, about the constant pressure and stress that came with wealth and responsibility. Jake listened without judgment, occasionally asking gentle questions. He told her about his farm, about the peace he found in working the land, about the satisfaction of growing something with his own hands. I envy you, Victoria said quietly as the sun began to set. Your life sounds so real. Real? Jake asked. Authentic. Meaningful. I spend my days in boardrooms and conference calls making decisions about money and investments. But you actually create things. You help things grow. Jake looked at her thoughtfully. Money and business help people too. They create jobs, support families, don't sell yourself short. Victoria smiled. It was the first genuine smile Jake had seen from her. You're very kind. When the police finally arrived, Victoria gave her statement and arranged for a rental car to be delivered the next day. As the officer prepared to drive her to town, she turned back to Jake. I'd like to repay you somehow, she said. For what you did. Jake shook his head. No need. Anyone would have done the same thing. No, Victoria said firmly. Not everyone would have risked their life for a stranger. You didn't even hesitate. She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. This has my personal number on it. Please, call me. I mean it. Jake took the card, his rough fingers brushing against her smooth ones. Okay, he said simply. 3 weeks later, Victoria returned to Cedar Ridge. She had been thinking about Jake every day since the accident, and not just because he had saved her life. There was something about his quiet strength, his genuine kindness, that had touched something deep inside her. She found him working in his vegetable garden, his shirt damp with honest sweat. When he looked up and saw her standing there, his face broke into that same gentle smile. I was hoping you'd come back, he said. Victoria walked closer, her designer shoes sinking slightly into the rich soil. I couldn't stop thinking about this place. About you. Jake set down his hoe and looked at her seriously. Victoria, we come from very different worlds. Maybe that's exactly what we both need, she interrupted softly. As the autumn sun set behind the mountains, Victoria Ashford, millionaire businesswoman, stood in a simple vegetable garden and realized she had found something more valuable than all her wealth. A man who had shown her what it meant to live with purpose, to act with courage, and to love without condition. Jake took her hand, and together they watched the stars appear in the clear mountain sky, knowing that sometimes the most unexpected encounters lead to the most extraordinary love stories.